Taylor's got a leopard, and look what we've just found, this beautiful lioness. I'm surprised she's walking around because it is still so warm. We're almost back at, we're across from the Vuyatela water. Look at that, she walked right past us. And I think this is the female that we found this morning. Let's turn around quickly. I'm just trying to see, oh sorry, where the male is. The male was with her earlier. Just gonna have a quick turn around here and just see if we can't see the male. No, I don't see him. It's maybe too hot for him to walk around. But let's see, there's a lot of impala in that direction that female's walked, but she is out in the open. The chances of her hunting now are probably very slim, and they've seen her already. They've already started to alarm call at her. You may hear the alarm calls as we get closer. Hang on a second, I think I can hear them, and all the impala off to the left. And just have a look at this behavior. It's very, very interesting. Here we go. Oh, look there. There's another lioness and male straight ahead. So this is a different lioness, everybody. Oh, wow, this is exciting. That is, yeah, that is the pair that we found this morning. That male and female. Now it'll be interesting to see the interaction. There's actually so much going on here. I just quickly want to show you, just to the left, look at these impala, how they are alarm calling. Listen to them. You hear that? But look how they're all walking towards the lions. And let me catch up to this female, and I'll tell you why. So what they're doing is they want to make sure they don't lose sight of this lioness, because lions are generally ambush predators. So if the impala can see the lions, there's little chance of them surprising them and potentially hunting them. So what they do is they walk after the lions to make sure they can see them and therefore avoid being surprised. And also that alarm calling will then hopefully deter them and cause them to move off, because then they know they've been seen, so they lose that element of surprise. Have a look here. Let's watch this interaction. Oh wow, this is fantastic. Yeah, exactly. Greeting one another, rubbing up against each other. Let's see what the male does. This could be interesting. Now he's got two females around him. Smelling, he may do that phlegm and grimace that we... Not quite. No, not quite. But look at that, and that other lioness has just carried on. So, I have absolutely no idea what just happened and why that lioness is moving. That is incredible. I've never seen that before. I'm just going to sit still while this lioness walks past us. Wow, right next to us. And here comes the male. What you may scent mark. Oh, there we go, exactly, look at that. Spraying some urine, and what he does is he scratches the soil. So what he is doing is he's exposing the fresh soil, and that will then cause that scent to last a little bit longer. So he scent marked this bush right next to us, this little bush. Now, I actually don't know what we should do. We should follow that other lioness, but judging by where she's going, she's walked off into that drainage line. It's very thick down there. We won't be able to get there or follow her down there. And I know they did have the rest of the pride this morning briefly, and they did move through into that thick drainage line. They're possibly not too far from there, and maybe she is just going to join up with them. Let's stick with these two and see where they're going. They're very close to these impala. This was the lioness we saw almost kill an inyala this morning, but I think that they too far out into the open to have any chance of hunting these impala. Wasn't that interaction just amazing? But this male is very intent on staying with this lioness. He's definitely interested in mating with her. We have not seen them mating yet, so I'm not sure. He's possibly just waiting and seeing, and perhaps in the next day or two they may mate. He clearly thinks she is ready to mate, and that's why he's staying with her. We did see him doing phlegm and grimace, which is how they tell whether or not the females are in estrus. They taste their urine, and they use an organ known as the Jacobson's organ, and they taste the urine, they push that scent onto that organ, and that allows them to tell whether or not the females are in estrus. And it's not just the lions that do it, there are other animals that do it too, but the lions, they really put on this amazing face, this snarling face, and that's when they're pushing that scent onto that organ, and it's known as the phlegm and grimace. This is really incredible, everyone, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's so hot, and usually lions do end up resting during the day, but it just shows you animals will change their behavior regularly. No book and no expert can tell you exactly how animals will behave. If they're thirsty, they will go off and find water, and if they feel like moving around, they will do that. So it's really great that we can show you this, because this is different behavior to what you are usually told. Most people always say lions and leopards will rest and sleep during the day and only move at night, but that's not the case. They will definitely move during the day if they want to. We've just got a comment from one of our viewers, and Molly's had a better look at this male, and she says this is not the same male that we saw this morning. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. So I'm not sure which male this is, one of the other Birmingham males. So there's possibly another male around here somewhere, because we're not far from where we saw that other male and female. So who knows, that could be the female that we saw this morning that walked back towards the rest of the pride and she left the male possibly around here, and this could be another female with the male, and they've moved away from the pride, and I'm not too sure where they are going. And it's interesting, it's very, very interesting. Now Steph can hear, apparently Steph on his walk can hear buffalo distress calls around Gallagher shortcut, which is not too far from where we are. So I wonder, there's no way of getting around these lions now, but I think we should stick with them. Maybe they'll take us into that area. Let's just see. I'm going to stop up ahead and just listen and see if we can hear those calls. Alright, let's just stop and listen here for a second. I'm just going to take my earpiece out so I can use both my ears. I can't hear anything at the moment. I think we may still be a little bit far from where we are. Trying to listen, everybody, but I don't hear anything. Okay, we're going to stick with these lines and see where they go. I'm going to carry on listening out for that buffalo that Steph says he can hear. While I do that, let's head back to Taylor and that big male leopard and see what they're up to. It is indeed another surprise. Look at this, everyone. These lions have found another buffalo. Now, I say found because when we managed to follow them through this very thick or dense thicket, it's almost like they knew where they were going, though. So I don't know if they killed this buffalo or if it died of natural causes and they've just found it and are coming to feed on it. You can see that stomach is very swollen, of that buffalo. So I think it has been dead for a while. Maybe it was killed this morning and it's just swollen during the course of the day. So perhaps these lions killed this buffalo earlier, and they went to go and drink, and then returned to feed on it. Now I can see this is the male with that very bad scar around the nose. So as one of our viewers said earlier, this is not the male we saw this morning, and it definitely isn't. So I'm not too sure where they are. That other couple, or pair rather, not couple. Can you believe it? Wow, these lions have been so fortunate with buffalo. It's very unfortunate for the buffalo, but again, this is nature, and this is nature's way of maintaining a balance. You know, if the buffalo herds get too large, they can really devastate an area, especially when it's dry, because they feed on grass and they're bulk feeders, so they constantly feed. Even though they are ruminants, they do still feed on a lot of grass and constantly move through an area, just like cattle do. So you can imagine huge herds. This is nature's way of finding a balance, I think, and thinning out the buffalo numbers a little bit. You know, it has been a bad drought and animals have suffered, but it is all part of the life cycle and part of nature. And luckily for these lions, they get another meal, which is great. So this is very interesting. I'd love to know what happened here. We really don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe these lions did kill the buffalo, possibly went and drank. There was no need for them to feed earlier. I mean, these lions have been feeding on buffalo almost every day. So it's interesting, very, very interesting. And you know, sometimes we will never know what happened, which is okay. The mystery is sometimes what is so intriguing. We had to do some serious off-road driving to get in here. Dave and I, there was a moment where we didn't think we were going to make it through. And quite a deep drainage line that we had to cross. Still don't know how we're going to get out of here, but we'll worry about that later. See, that male's still very, very hot and not interested in feeding. He's panting quite heavily. That's how I can tell that he is warm. His mouth's open. That scar is actually looking much, much better. It's incredible how these animals are able to heal. Look at that. That's amazing. Oh, there's a lovely cool breeze just blowing at the moment. Look at those teeth. Wow. This doesn't look like a very big buffalo either. I would say it's probably a teenager or young female. So Susan has sent through a comment about this lioness's tail. Susan says it looks like quite powerful, and they could probably knock things over with it, or even cause bruises if they had to hit us with their tail. Susan, those tails are very powerful. They're very thick and muscular and very, very strong. I've never been hit by a lion's tail before, but I would imagine it's probably a little painful. I think if I'd been hit by the tail, I probably wouldn't be here to tell the tale. But yes, they are quite powerful and quite thick. Lael from Washington has asked us a question. Lael would like to know, will male lions ever fight amongst each other over females? Yes, Lael, definitely. They definitely will. Even obviously males from that are not related, that come into contact to fight for territory, they will fight basically for females, the prides that are in the area. They will fight for dominance to be able to mate with those females. But even males that are part of a coalition, which means they are probably brothers or they are related in some way, not necessarily always. Occasionally you may have males from different prides that meet up when they are young and they form a coalition, but those coalitions will stick together, and together they are able to have much larger territories. But even though they work together to protect territories against other male lions, they will fight amongst themselves for dominance over females so that they can mate with them. Success for a lion is basically, and this goes for nature in general, success is to have a large territory, or to have an area that you patrol and roam, and to have offspring. That is basically it. That is success in nature. And for these lions to have a large territory and mate with these females and have offspring, they are then considered to be successful. Look how powerful that female is. She's moving that whole buffalo. So a question from Musical in Colorado, and they would like to know, would lions ever take on a hippo? Yes, definitely. I have seen lions actually run and attack and jump on a hippo while it's leaving a small little water hole like we saw earlier. So 100% yes, they would. Usually smaller hippo are a bit easier to bring down, but it's not to say they won't go for a larger hippo either. So yes, they will indeed go for hippo. We're going to sit with these lions and their new buffalo carcass for a while. While we do that, let's head back to Taylor for an update on the old buffalo carcass. It's just the female that's feeding at the moment. She's trying to break open the carcass, and look how she's licking there. It's very, very interesting. And the reason for that is because their tongues are so rough, and sometimes they can lick away skin completely. They've got very, very rough tongues. They look, if you have a close-up of a tongue, it almost looks like it's barbed. It's got little hairs on it. Very, very rough. And then she'll try to use the front teeth to tear open the carcass. I take my hat off to Taylor, who went to go and have a look at that old carcass, because I assume the smell is not very pleasant around there. So rather Taylor than me. This one hasn't started smelling yet, but I've got a feeling that if this lion manages to break that stomach open, it's not going to be very pleasant. Look at that lion chewing with the side of its mouth now. just the right hand side. And the reason for that is these lions, they've got something called a carnassial shear. And the carnassial shear, these teeth right at the back of their mouths, so the molars and the premolars, and what they do is they actually overlap with each other, so they form a slightly sharpened edge and then therefore cause a scissor motion. And obviously that's where all the muscles are, right at the back of the jaw, and they're able to feed and chew and tear meat with that shear at the back, those really tough, hard molars and premolars and all that muscle at the back of the jaw. So they'll prefer to feed with that, but, and you can see this female doing this now, they will still use their front teeth to try and tear open the carcass before they get to the meat and before they start using the sides of their mouths to feed on it. It's interesting, the male hasn't been interested in feeding at all. He's possibly still full from all the buffalo they had the previous day. So Deborah, armchair traveler. Hi Deborah, good afternoon, almost good evening to you. And Deborah says she's very curious as to why this male isn't feeding either, and very surprised that he's not feeding. And like I say, Deborah, possibly just because they've been feeding on so many buffalo or daily. It's been a daily occurrence. So yeah, I think maybe later he'll start feeding again. They're very opportunistic, and I think that's exactly what's happened here. Is because these lions either found this buffalo or killed it earlier this morning. I'm not sure. We don't know. And like I said, that's actually, it's nice to have a bit of mystery at times. But he's not interested in feeding. But it seemed as if they knew exactly where to go, because we followed them almost directly to the spot. They walked through and down into quite a deep drainage line, not far from Mvubu Road, and we're basically between Mvubu and Gallagher shortcut. It's a little tricky, this area. Like I said, I don't know how we're going to get out of here because we did some serious off-roading to get in here. But at the end of the day, we will do as much as we can to get you to see these amazing sightings. Selena has asked us a question: do lions kill even if they're not hungry? Selena, yes they do. And the reason for that is, as I said, they're so opportunistic. All these big cats are. I've seen lions feeding on a wildebeest, and while they were feeding, another one walked past and they all got up and chased that one too and tried to kill it. So even if they're not hungry, they will still try and hunt. And the reason for that is because they don't know when their next meal is going to come about. You know, occasionally, sometimes the year, lions aren't very successful and they can go 2 or 3 days without food. So if there's a chance to hunt and have spare food around, they will definitely do it and definitely take that opportunity. Lovely peaceful afternoon. Still a few birds calling. I can hear a Jacobin cuckoo calling in the distance. I can hear a pearl spotted owl. I think those are a little bit too far for you to pick up on or to hear. But there's some interesting birds calling. Cape turtle dove, we always say it's got that call which sounds like it's saying work harder, work harder, work harder. But then I joke with my guests and say, but that's what it says in the morning, and in the afternoons it's drink lager, drink lager. But again, I don't think so. Wow, that lioness is really tucking into that buffalo, trying to rip it open. So Selena has asked, will these ticks jump off the buffalo? And Selena, if you have a look closely, let's see if we can zoom in, but there are still ticks on that buffalo. You can see there's still a few ticks around there. And I think some of these ticks might get eaten by the lions because they are just hanging onto the skin of the buffalo. But I think when they are disturbed, chances are they'll probably move off a little bit while the lions are feeding. But I wouldn't be surprised. You can see this buffalo is covered in ticks. So I wouldn't be surprised if the lions do actually eat some of those ticks. And some of them may even climb onto the lions. The lions also get ticks at times. We're probably going to leave these lions shortly, but just before we do, let's get an update from Taylor. She's got a large bird that she'd like to show you. She's eaten a little bit more, Taylor. She's trying to get that stomach open, but watch, this male is now showing a bit more interest and looks like he'd like to potentially start feeding. It's really funny to watch, actually. It's almost like he's not sure what to do. Really great to have seen those ground hornbills again with Taylor. I love seeing these rare birds. So I'm glad she got to show you them. We saw one this morning. It's always wonderful to see them around. You can see that female's just tearing and trying to rip open that underside of the buffalo, trying to get to that soft meat. The male got up, walked around a little bit, licked the carcass once or twice, and then has just gone and lay down again. So I'm very surprised that he hasn't decided to start feeding. He looks very lazy. Or rather, maybe lazy is the wrong word. I think lazy is the wrong word. He looks content. He looks happy, relaxed. His food, it's still a very, very warm afternoon. So there's no need for him to move around or worry. This buffalo is definitely not going anywhere. So there'll be food here for the entire evening. You never know. The rest of the pride could eventually join them unless they've got some food elsewhere that we don't know about. Wow, look at that yawn. Wonderful. You see those teeth. Now usually yawning may indicate a sign of activity. May stand up and move around. And Brooklyn, age 10, has asked us a question. Why are all the buffalo dying? Are they sick? So, Brooklyn, what's happened is, I think these buffalo are very, very weak. They haven't had a lot of food. There's not a lot of grass around. And I'll ask Dave to show you just now, but at the moment, it's very, very dry. We've got little bits of green grass coming out. And if you look just off to our left, can you see here? There's actually no grass. There's little bits of greenery coming through because of the little bit of rain we had. But because there's no grass, there's not a lot of food for these buffalo to eat. So they're getting very thin, they're getting very weak, and it's because we call it a drought. So it's the dry season that we've had. It's been very, very dry, not a lot of rain, and that is why there's not a lot of food for these buffalo to eat. And that is why I think the main reason why they are a lot weaker, and because they've been hanging around in this area where these lions are prevalent and all over. The lions have been bumping into them on a daily basis, and that is why I think that it's easier for the lions to hunt them and feed on them, because these buffalo are not as strong as they usually are, and they're not able to get away as much. Oh, you can see that's all the stomach contents on that lioness. Ugh. Oh, look at, she's just stretching, trying to maybe stretch her claws. Often they do that to stretch them and clean them a little bit. They'll scrape them on the side of trees. Oh, that's interesting. And now just walking away. Look at the male tapping the back of her legs, trying to get her to lay down. Oh, watch her, everybody. I thought he may try and mate with this female, but he's not interested in the... Oh, he's just going to lay down again. This is incredible. Within the minute that the lioness has got up and walked away from the buffalo, I can hear a swarm of flies, and those flies are all over that carcass now. Just have a look at this. Look at all those flies. Isn't that incredible? Obviously the smell from those stomach contents being released is just too much, and attracted all these flies. But literally within the minute that she stood up and moved away, those flies just invaded that buffalo carcass. Very, very interesting. Oh, hang on. Listen to this lioness. She just gave a very low contact call, a little oh, oh, but she stopped now. Listen. There we go. Come on, roar for us. That would be wonderful. Possibly trying to find out where the rest of the pride is. That's how lions communicate. They'll roar and call. Just trying to hear if I don't hear lions calling back, but that was a very soft contact call that she gave. If I have any idea where I think the rest of the pride is, a bit too far to hear that. But we're not sure. I mean, we didn't really know where these lions were. They popped out of nowhere this afternoon, and it was great to be able to follow them right back to this carcass. See, she's just cleaning herself a little bit there, but she's got all those stomach contents on her front legs. Look how she's cleaning her paws, and again using that tongue, that rough tongue, which is able to clean themselves, perhaps get little thorns out of the paws or the pads underneath, if they do have any. very peaceful. It's amazing how peaceful it can be sitting next to these lions. And again, look at those legs covered in the buffalo stomach contents. And that male, that face tells a lot of stories. Listen. She keeps teasing us. 1 or 2 little calls and then she stops again. And look, that male doesn't want to let her out of his sight, following her non-stop, staying very, very close to her. Wow, that's so interesting. They seem to be moving off now, further away into the thicket. And that's why I said I don't think they were necessarily that hungry on the, to eat this buffalo. Came across it, opportunistic, tried to feed a little bit, and now they're moving away again. It is very thick through there, and we are losing some light at the moment. It'll be tricky for me to follow them. I'm going to head around, try get to a road, and maybe we get them coming out on the other side. And while I do that, let's head to Steph and get an update from him. I hope he's had a good afternoon. So everyone, we managed to get out of that dense thicket and drive around, and we thought we'd find the pair again, but we haven't. This is a different lioness. Can you believe it? She's come out of a thicket somewhere, also in this area. So all these lions seem to be around here somewhere. I'm hoping she heads towards the plain. I'm just scanning around. We did hear something up ahead. Maybe the other lions are not too far. And you can see, I can tell it's a different lioness immediately. Look how clean those front legs are. Not as dirty as the one we were with. And I think she may go and drink at the waterhole, just off to the side. Let's go around quickly and see where she goes. Maybe we find the others up ahead. Let's look. I did hear something. It sounded like a growl or a grunt. Let's look carefully. Don't see anything just yet. Let's just have a look if this lioness comes out to drink. That would be wonderful with the light that we've got left. I'm just going to wait here. There she comes. Hang on. I do think she's going to go and drink. It's been a hot afternoon, so I'm going to reposition quickly so we can get her coming to the waterhole. She could also change her direction completely though. Let's see. There she comes. Don't want to shine the spotlight directly on her, just in front of her, just for enough light so we can see her clearly. And this was probably the female that we saw this morning with that other male, and I don't know where he has gone. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that reflection, everybody. Oh my word, this is wonderful. Look at that. That's really, really fantastic. Following these lions, we struggled to get out of that little block that we were in. We took a chance coming around thinking this is the nearest water, perhaps that male and female come and drink here, and then all of a sudden we bumped into another lioness that we saw moving through the dense thicket. This is great. We've been so lucky this afternoon. What a fantastic afternoon. I hope you have all enjoyed it as much as we have. I've loved these lions. They've been so kind to us. Been more active than lions usually are in the heat of the afternoon. Look at those eyes. Now notice her tongue actually curls backwards while she's drinking. Is lapping up the water. Can you see that? So they don't get a lot of water with each lap of the water or each lick. So that is why these animals, when they do get to drink, lion and leopard and all these big cats, they tend to drink for quite a long time because they need to get as much water as possible. That is magnificent. So peaceful. I'm not sure if you can hear her lapping up the water. It's very soft, very faint. And Dave just told me you can hear it. Listen again. Wonderful. Red-chested cuckoo calling in the distance. That bit my fro, bit my fro. And as I said, look how much water this lioness is drinking. She's drinking a huge amount, staying down there, sipping and sipping and sipping, because she's been very hot. I'm assuming today it was a hot day, so she's getting all the water she can get for now. Quench that thirst and then move on again. Very curious to know where the male is. So I think that's about it for the afternoon with all these lions. It's been such an exciting afternoon. I'm so glad we got to show you all this lion activity, the buffalo and the lions drinking. A big thank you to Dave on camera with me this afternoon. Thanks, Dave. And we will see you all tomorrow. From myself, Byron, thank you very much. We'll see you on tomorrow morning's sunrise safari.